today at Ample. We've got the car here, we've got the motor has been pulled out by the boys yesterday. I'll just come in today, got motor on the ground, everything stripped off it, ready to roll. So we'll head into the engine room. This is another car that you might start seeing a little bit of footage on soon. A mate of mine, Jimmy, owns this and he's doing some work, getting Ample boys to get a bit done on it. So when you're into the engine room, so we have the 2.8. So this combo is a RB28 block. We've got a spool 2.8 stroker kit in it. Spool, pistons, rods, whole lot. We have obviously the PRP trigger kit. The only way you want to go if you're actually making some RPM and actually want to make some power with these. It's amazing looking back at some of the old videos at how much the RPM trace used to jump around. So that's going on. I'll actually take you over. We've had a few bits and pieces going on with this motor. One of them being that the head, obviously there's a fair bit on them. So doing the RB Neo head onto an RB28 block, obviously you've got to put, block off the VCT gallery, and you want to weld up part of the coolant gallery, so it blocks off that, so it actually matches the head gasket, because the head gaskets are different between the two. That's been something that I had forgotten. Now, yeah, we're about to go do that, so I'll take you guys over there in a minute. We're just setting up to weld the head and I'll kick off with that soon. All right. Alright everyone, back home. This video is actually going to be a bit clunky. Putting it together, I realised that there are bits that I've kind of missed out. Unfortunately, while working at Ample, it's a full running workshop, so we've got kind of limited time to do things, and pulling the camera out, getting stuff a video just eats into time, especially when we're on a massive time crunch like we were. So as you've seen, we started welding up the head. That went pretty well. So welded that all up, got that nice and flat, got it back together. Then we got the head back on the motor. If you're following along on Facebook, there was a video of us kind of tightening up head bolts, and yeah, so we got all that done. And as you'll see in the next bit of video, most of the top ends together, so we'll roll into that footage. But yeah, there's a few bits that I'll have to edit and shoot here, just kind of keep you guys in the loop. But yeah, it was a massive push, so bear with us. This video is going to be a bit clunky, so cheers. Well, another day here at Ample. So Dougie's been giving us a bit of a hand. Last week I was pretty slack on the videoing, to be honest. Still getting used to it. I'm one of those, I just get into a bit of a jam and it just kind of all ends up happening. But we have got the motor fairly well assembled. So we've got head on, all torqued down. I will do a bit of a run through on the differences, or like putting a Neo head together with a 26 block, because that's been a bit of a thing that there's a fair bit documented, but there's also like a fair bit that isn't. So yeah, today we are at the point where we will put the balancer on. We're going to start putting all of the buckets, lifter buckets in, cams on. So we've, obviously this motor is upgraded. It's actually got the Tomei cam studs, which is super nice in comparison to the old school Nissan bolts. So they've obviously done a few laps now, so we figure we might as well upgrade that while we're at it. We are going to be, at the moment, by the looks of it, changing turbos. So we do have the old Aeroflow turbo here, but as seen in probably the previous video, there's a bit of damage to the rear wheel on it. And of all things, Doug had this one kicking around. This is actually his old one off of his GC8 time hill climb car. So we're probably going to chuck that on now. So that's a G35 1050, which is ideally what we were going to go with, but obviously the Aeroflow equivalent. But yeah, so from here we'll start getting buckets together and in. Cams on, check all of our shim heights, make sure everything's good there, and then we'll degree the cam in, so stay tuned. Alright, so we've got all of our lifter buckets in. We have verified that we are at top dead center on the crank. What that basically means is now we know exactly where all the pistons are in the holes. So now we can take our cams and we can start putting our cams in. And as long as we make sure that all of our cams are in the same position as they would be with top dead center, we won't have a drama. So let's go. All right, here we go again. So as you would have just seen in the time lapse, we got all the cams in, cam gears on, belts on, and then it was degreeing the cams. Now, I did start videoing this, but if you've ever degreed cams in before, it's not a job that you can go into, especially if you haven't done it often, or in my case, ever before. You can't go in there kind of haphazardly. It's pretty full on. So Dougie helped me set up the intake cam. We actually have our cam card. So this is a set of Kelford cams that we run. There's two ways of setting up cam timing. You can set it up off of your valve lift and the degrees that the cam card has. So in this case, you could set it up on your timing at 1 mil valve lift, and then at 1 mil valve lift you should be seeing the exhaust valve open at 55 degrees, and the exhaust valve closed at 3 degrees. Now, Doug kind of steered us in a different direction. Doug prefers using the center line of the cam. So it's actually got suggested center lines as well. So I've got kind of my sheet of my running notes while we were putting it together and while I was doing the exhaust. So it's interesting because Doug doesn't like doing the off the timing, because there can be a certain degree of error. If you don't have all of your valve clearances to exactly where is specified at cold, if it's slightly out, it can change by a degree or two, which is actually pretty evident when we did it. So when we were actually degreeing the cam in, we went off of center lines, and I went. So the way you do it is basically you'll pick a number. I picked 1 millimeter, and you take down your degrees of where it's sitting. So at 1 mil of lift on our exhaust cam, we were sitting, it got to 1 mil at 50.5 degrees before bottom dead center. And then if you kept winding it around, it got back to 1 degree, basically coming back up 1.5 degrees before top dead center. So in amongst that, there's a whole heap of math. So you do your kind of 50.5 plus 180, and that'll take you from your, if you've got like a circle, your before bottom dead center mark, and that'll take you around the top, which for us was 230.5. Then you've got to take it back your 1.5, which is where it was closing, divided by 2. Yeah, you get a number, and then it's a long process. And inevitably, the first time I did it, I ended up going the wrong way on the gear, so we wound it over and we'd gone the wrong way, but we ended up getting to our 116 degrees for our valve, for our basically cam center line. So obviously once you start getting, depending on where you are on the profile of the cam, you can have a lot of lift in a short duration, but you can also have a lot of duration with only minimal lift if you're kind of at the very start of the cam. So I believe that's why Doug likes going off of the lobe center line. If you want to see a video about it, say something. There are plenty online that I was able to find, but nothing RB specific. So if it is something you want to see, let us know. We're going to have the motor out again. We've got a couple of things that we're going to be sorting out, so I'll be more than happy to pull it apart and do a fairly in-depth video. Now that I know what I'm doing, does make a lot more sense. So yeah, let us know, but we'll roll into the next bit. All right, motor's all degreed. That's a massive job, and I'm probably a bit too simple. Anyway, we got there in the end with a bit of help from Doug. So we've, yeah, there's a fair process to it. So we've got all of our marks set to what our cam timing and what our cam card says, but yeah, there's lots of maths to it. So yeah, I didn't get a whole lot filmed just due to that, but we'll keep plugging away. Now that that's done, the top end's pretty much finished up. I'm probably actually going to roll the motor over now and start making up some new hoses for the turbo, for the coolant fittings and oil drains and all that good stuff. Yeah, on everyone. So we have finally sealed up the sump. That's all on, tight, sealed, ready to roll. So now we just move on the top. One thing we didn't do the other day was obviously put the backing cover on. So we'll just take the gears back off. We've just marked where we're at. So obviously we've degreed everything. We want it to go back in the same spot. So it's just a simple way of marking it so we know it's all going to go back together. We've started plumbing the turbo. So we've got new drain line on. We've made everything now out of the Raceworks Teflon. I'm just marking stuff so we can keep an eye on, make sure nothing's coming loose. So new -8 head drain, -6 water feed. Everything's kind of a bit more out of the way from where it used to be. Everything used to run over the top of the motor. It was a bit messy and a bit ugly, so just tidying all that up. We've still got to clock the front compressor housing position, but we'll get onto that once it's back in the car. Got the Savvy oil pump on, connected. Just put some heat sleeving over everything on this side, just give it the best chance of living. Like I said, we've had all the 100 series on and that's been working, so the Teflon line is a whole lot better for heat anyway, so we should be good. On with timing cover. So as you can see, we got the whole motor dressed, alternator on, everything on, ready to go. Dropped the motor in the car. I think this was it was Tuesday afternoon. We got the motor in the car. Then went in Wednesday morning to start it up, and started up, man, the thing, oh, it sounds phenomenal. It sounded amazing. The 2.8, it's got a different note. I can't even describe it. Just sounds phenomenal. And while we're warming up, notice a little puddle underneath the car. Kind of start having a bit of a look. Leaking from the rear bell housing. So yeah, if you played with cars, you know that's not a good time. Well, we are back at Ample. We got here this morning, car was all ready. buttoned up the last couple of things, ready to run in the new motor. I got it started getting some temperature into it, kind of doing a bit of a leak check, and as some of you might have seen in that photo, we have our rear main seal leaking. Well, that's what we believe it is. So, hour in, motor's out, back on the deck, and sure enough, it's leaking, little puddle. So that's life. We'll hopefully get it sorted. It's only Wednesday. We've still got 2 more days to go until race day. So yeah, 2 more days till race day. I think that was a comment that probably nearly bit me. That leak was just a saga of events. So the initial leak, the one that you can actually see just before, what that was my fault. That was we're using a PRP girdle. When we got the block back, the block and everything had been machined for the girdle, all mint. I went to put the rear main seal housing on, and that had been that was all good, ready to go. When I looked at it, I noticed that 2 of the M6 threads that held the sump on had actually been pulled out. I had another rear housing, didn't think anything of it, grabbed that, put a new rear main seal in that, put it on, bolted the girdle down, everything looked good, didn't notice anything out of the norm. What had actually happened was when Miltons do the block for the girdles, they actually skim the front oil pump housing and the rear main seal housing at the same time. So it wasn't sitting, so the rear main housing that I put on wasn't sitting proud by much, but it was just enough. It was just enough that the probably 2mm O-ring that PRP supply with their girdle wouldn't take up the gap. So as soon as I had it out, and we had it on the engine crane with some oil in it and laid it back, you could see oil seeping out from between the block and the girdle. So then we were scratching our heads, trying to work out what it was, and that was when we noticed that the oil pump housing that I used had kind of cross hatching that matched the bottom of the block, and my rear main seal housing didn't. And then when I grabbed the rear main seal housing that was initially with it, that had cross hatching on it, so it had all been bolted together. The rear main seal was doweled to the block, so it fits where it's meant to fit. And then it got machined and it was just perfectly flat. So that was my fault. Is what it is. So I ended up, then we drilled out all 4 of the threads. 2 of them were stripped. So I drilled all 4 of them out, helicoiled them, so they will be good as new. Put that back on, filled it with oil, kind of rolled it around. Looked good, looked sorted, nothing leaked. There is probably a couple of changes we do want to make with that PRP girdle. It seems to work for most people, but it's now leaking again on us. Not bad, but just enough that it's annoying me, so the motor's going to come out again. But so after we found that, we rectified that, thought, all right, happy days, we're sweet, put the motor back in. This would have been, I reckon, probably Wednesday afternoon. Nah, it would have been Wednesday, kind of mid-morning. We got it back in Wednesday afternoon. Started it up for a second time that day. Still a leak. Coming from what looked like the same spot. It was dripping down the front side of the bell housing cover. But looking through like an inspection hole that I've got for the flywheel for the clutch, no moisture there, so it didn't look like the rear main seal was leaking and blowing onto the flywheel and making a mess there. We couldn't see anything leaking from the sump where it was before. We know that was a leak. So we pulled the motor out again Wednesday afternoon, and that was then when we found the NPT plug. So at the back of the block, there's like a dowel that goes in to the oil gallery from factory that seals it. When you rebuild the motors and you want to clean everything out, they drill the dowel out. Normally wind a NPT thread in. Now, the motor got started to get built by someone other than Milton's back in the day. They had it for a few years. It kind of never really ended up going anywhere, and one thing led to another. I ended up grabbing it and gave up, and we went to Milton's. So this work had already been done previously, so it's definitely nothing that Milton's or Ample did. It's just life. Once bitten, twice shy now. So anyway, the NPT thread looked like it had been tapped too far down in the block. So what it meant was that we'd actually wound this plug in, and it felt like it had bottomed out, but it hadn't actually bottomed out on the threads. So an NPT plug needs to seal on the threads. So we pulled the plug out. We found another one. Being a taper, if you could find a plug that's slightly bigger, it's going to seal earlier. So we found a plug that was about 0.2 mil bigger. We put that in Wednesday afternoon, and we put that in with a stag compound that Ample use, and it's apparently it sets like rock, but it takes 24 hours. Now, this is Wednesday afternoon. We then chucked it in Wednesday, left it overnight. So Thursday morning we came back in and started it up, and it leaked again. So we weren't entirely sure if it was this plug. So we pulled the motor back out. With the motor out, we then dragged all the front splitter over, which has all of our oil cooler and everything on it. So then we were able to wind the motor over, wind the oil pump over through the oil cooler, through the filter, and get oil pressure. Sure enough, leaking out this back plug. So there was a fair bit of head scratching going on there. After a little while, we came up with the idea that we'd chase a metric thread into the back, put a metric plug in, and that then solved our issues. So from there, the motor had come in and out 4 times in 3 days. It was, I was knackered. We were knackered. Doug had been a massive help. All the boys at Ample had been awesome. So we finally got it to seal, and next up you'll see some videos of it on the dyno. So Going on, everyone? We are done at Ample. What a massive week it's been. I think the engine's been in and out of the car 4 times. On Thursday morning, I said to Wade, one of the guys at Ample, if this motor has to come out again, I'm done. I'm putting it on the trailer. I've had enough. And Thursday morning, sure enough, went to fire it up. We had another oil leak. So Dougie, from Ample, he came to the rescue and helped us pull the motor out. I think that was a speed round. It was 20 minutes, and we had the motor out on the ground. And then we were fairly sure we had this problem sorted. So at the back of the motor, there's like a MPT plug. We put one in there, sealed over the top of it, all looked good, no issues. Pulled it out, and yep, sure enough, it had leaked. So then we went in a second time. We actually found a slightly larger plug. So if you know MPT, it's a taper. So we actually found a plug that was 0.2 mil diameter larger, and it bottomed out. It went tight earlier in the actual plug hole. So we thought, yep, nailed. We used the Stag sealant. So we put that in. That kind of requires 24 hours to cure. And this was like probably 2 o'clock on Thursday. So we thought, well, we'll leave it overnight. Come back Friday morning, start it up, see what happens. So we come in this morning, started it up, once again, leaking. So we pulled it back out. This time, with it back out, we thought we'll drag all the front splitter over and all cooler and all that, plumb everything up and run the oil pump up on the drill. So doing that, then we could definitely see, as one of the videos I posted up, it was definitely leaking out of that rear plug. So had a bit of a chat with Milton's, Chris Milton Engine Developments, Sam from there, spitballing a few ideas. We kind of thought, maybe do we just weld the plug in? Sam said, nah, no good. You'll end up cracking. Being a cast block steel plug just won't work. So we ended up going with another option. So we actually chased the thread out with a metric thread, and we've put a metric plug with then like a Dowdy, well, it's called a Dowdy seal, like a washer that seals. So the back of the block's all nice and flat. So put that in. Obviously, Ample, Doug, they've got jobs on, so we had to wait for the dyno. So we got the motor out, back in with the new plug. Pretty confident it's sealed. Sure enough, yep, we were on. So I think it was about 3-4 o'clock today. We finally got it fired up and started the run-in procedure and started making some power. So yeah, we've been running it up, done the run-in, dropped the ULX running oil, looked awesome. No, obviously it's a bit metallic-y. That's what you get with running. That's what it's designed for. So we've got the good oil in, the ULX 1050, which is what we run. Yeah, so it made some good numbers. We made 450 kilowatts. I think Dougie was asking me what I wanted. I said 450, and he nailed it on the dot. I think it was 450.2 or something, and that was pretty much on wastegate spring. I think it was 20 pound. So it is really, really efficient with our new power to weight. That's pretty much me capped anyway, I think. So yeah, we're exactly where we need to be power wise. Now I've just got to get my ass into gear. So I think 7 o'clock now, 10 o'clock tomorrow we run. So we've got 12, 13, 14 odd hours. I did get told by Glenn from Ample to stop counting things in hours. So I don't know what 14 hours is in minutes, but we'll roll with that because it's going to sound a whole lot better than 14 hours. And I've still got a trailer to pack and gear to pack and an hour drive home from Ample. So massive thanks to Wade, Zane, Dougie, Glenn, all the Ample lads. I've been in their workshop all week annoying them, asking them questions, bugging them. Without those guys, this definitely, we would not be on the track tomorrow. So huge shout out to Ample. Raceworks have been wicked. We've got a heap of new fittings, all the new turbo lines. All the, like, we've now run all of our coolant to our wastegate. They've been sick. The ULX oil, that's always been a perler. That ran in the last motor for ages. No dramas, so why not? Anyway, stay tuned. We're going home now. Load up. We'll be at the track tomorrow. Quali is at 10 if you're coming out to the track. Race 1 is at 2, I think it is. And I think 2, 4 and 7 we're racing. So if you're in Adelaide around Mallala, come on out. It'll be a ball. Catch it.